Hello, this is Nikki in Niagara coming to you from Niagara Falls, Canada. And today we're going to be taking a look at my January book haul, which is ginormous. Book Outlet had some fantastic deals on, sales on in January, and I took advantage of a couple of them. I have my Abominable Book Club books. I've been shopping in Amazon and a couple of thrift stores, and yeah, got myself a bundle of new books. So if you're a bookish type of person who likes to hear about books, this is the one for you. So sit back, relax, and get some sort of activity like coloring or diamond painting or whatever it is you do, and listen along. And let's get started. First of all, I'm going to show you what I got from the Abominable Book Club, and I'm absolutely thrilled with this, or January's selection. So first of all was the magazine Black Static, and I've read this already, and this was just absolutely amazing. It is like, I've never read it before, but every single story in here was a 5-star for me. And it's just an absolutely beautiful book, and it definitely is a book. It's nice, good quality, and yeah, really. So this is a double issue, number 80 and 81. The main feature was the Nothing But Blackened Teeth, and I have been wanting this one quite badly. And so I was just absolutely thrilled when it came. I know a lot of people didn't like this book, but the reason they don't like it is because of all the Japanese mythology that's supposedly in it. And I read a lot of manga and know a lot about Japanese mythology, so I'm thinking this is going to be right up my alley. So looking forward to that. And then the surprise gently used book was Dean Koontz, and this was before he had the R in his name. So really excited to read this. I love Dean Koontz, and it's been a long time since I read a book of his. So this is The House of Thunder, and I will read you what it's about. Oh, I forgot to read you Blackened Teeth. Let's do that first. So Kat joins her old friends who are in search of the perfect wedding venue to spend the night in a Heian era manor in Japan. Trapped in webs of love, responsibility, and yesterdays, they walk into a haunted house with their hearts full of ghosts. A love house stories. This mansion is long abandoned, but it is hungry for new guests and welcomes them all. Welcomes the demons inside them, because it is built on foundations of sacrifice and bone. Their night of food, drinks, and games quickly spirals into a nightmare as the house draws them into its embrace. For lurking in the shadows is the ghost bride with a black smile and a hungry heart, and she gets lonely down there in the dirt. Alright, so now let's take a look at The House of Thunder by Dean Koontz. In a cavern called the House of Thunder, Susan Thornton watched in terror as her lover died a brutal death in a college hazing. And in the following 4 years, the 4 young men who participated in that grim fraternity rite likewise died violently. Or did they? 12 years later, Susan wakes in a hospital bed, apparently involved in a fatal accident. She is suffering from amnesia. She doesn't remember who she is or why she is there. All she knows is that her convalescence is unfolding into a fearful nightmare, and that the faces that surround her, pretending loving care, are those of the 4 men involved in that murder years before. Have the dead come back to life, or has Susan plunged into the abyss of madness? With the help of her neurosurgeon, Susan desperately clings to her sanity while fighting to uncover who or what could be stalking her. Ooh, sounds good. It's got nice big words. Not going to take long to read. Finally got my copy of Gwen in Green by Hugh Zachary. I pre-ordered this on Amazon Canada, and it is just absolutely useless, worthless for pre-ordering books. It took so long that I still wasn't getting it that I canceled my order, ordered it on Book Depository, and had it in 2 weeks. So this is a Paperbacks from Hell. The private little island seemed like paradise. Now, during this video, I'm going to be taking sips of my drink because I have dry mouth. Drinking Diet Dr. Pepper, for those who don't know my preferred pop. After receiving a large insurance settlement, young couple Gwen and George fulfill a dream by buying their own little island, a secluded private paradise surrounded by a lush green landscape of plants. What the real estate man didn't tell them was that a tragedy took place years earlier in the cool, clear pool near the house, and the waters still hold a terrifying centuries-old secret. Soon George begins to notice strange changes in his wife. Always so reserved and demure, suddenly Gwen has become passionate and insatiable. And could there be any connection between her altered personality and a recent series of mysterious disappearances? This first ever reissue of Hugh Zachary's echo horror novel, Gwen in Green. Oh, it has the original illustration on the front. Don't need to read that. So, yeah, this is my first Paperbacks in Hell book, to tell you the truth. When my sister was out thrift shopping, I'm going to put this here so that my camera doesn't keep unfocusing. My sister picked this up for me at a used book, like a Value Village or somewhere like that. So it is the Well-Read Women Readers Journal, and this is still available for sale, and I really like it. It's really pretty, and I like the pages. So every now and then we get a double spread like this with a literary quote and an illustration, and then the pages are 1 page per review. We've got date started, date finished, and rate this book 1 to 5. Book title and author. So the only thing missing there that I would like is the publisher, so I'll put that down myself. Also, there isn't the year, which is important for me, so I'll put that in there too. And then we have different sections for filling out. There's plot notes, character notes, favorite quotes, and other books to read by this author. I probably won't follow that, and I'll probably just write my own review down in there. I'll probably fill out this section here about other books. So yeah, there doesn't tell you how many are in here, but there's a lot, seeing as... Oh, and the back also has some award stuff, which is interesting. So some of the books that I got from Book Outlet, but the Book Outlet is in the town next to me, and so I go to their store and I pick up some stuff from the store itself. This is True Crime, The Beautiful Cigar Girl, Mary Rogers, Edgar Allan Poe, and the Invention of Murder by Daniel Stashauer. Now, I've read about Mary Rogers before, but never a book dedicated to her, and especially with this angle. On July 28, 1841, the battered body of Mary Rogers, a 20-year-old cigar girl who had disappeared 3 days earlier, was found floating in the Hudson. By nightfall, news of the death had sent Manhattan into a spasm of horror and outrage. In the months following, the grisly details of the murder pushed American journalists into new realms of lurid sensationalism. Despite the media pressure, New York's unregulated, disjointed police force proved unable to mount an effective investigation, and the crime remained unsolved. 1 year later, a struggling writer named Edgar Allan Poe decided to take on the case and sent his fictional detective, C. Auguste Dupin, to solve the baffling murder of Mary Rogers in The Mystery of Marie Roget. So I don't think it has any pictures. Oh, yeah, we have a picture, of Poe. Another true crime. The Mile End Murder. The Case Conan Doyle Couldn't Solve. So I wonder if that... Oh. So this is by Sinclair McKay. The boy knocked at the door 3 times. No one answered. The next day, on Thursday, 17th August 1860, wealthy widow Mary Emsley was found dead in her own home, killed by a savage blow to the back of her head. What followed was a murder case that gripped the nation. The case led to a sensational public trial that was dominated by surprise revelations and shock witnesses. But was an innocent man sent to the gallows? Arthur Conan Doyle was thoroughly perplexed by what appeared to be a real-life locked-room mystery. After unearthing the Emsley case, best-selling author Sinclair McKay was gripped by what seemed an historic miscarriage of justice, and so delved further, setting himself on the trail of the real killer. So you can tell I like historical true crime. A little photograph section in the middle. I prefer nonfiction when it's illustrated throughout rather than having that glossy illustration section. So this is Skitter, which is the second book in the Hatching trilogy. Now I've read Hatching, but I haven't read the others. So this, I'm not going to read you the back of it because it's a sequel, so we don't want to spoil anything for you for the first one. Next one is Wendy's Magic Feather, which is the sequel to Wendy's Button Box. So this one is written by Richard Chismar. So I have Wendy's Button Box, but I haven't read it yet. And, oh, this is illustrated. Cool. I guess the other one is too. So I picked up the sequel. The third book, and I suppose it's a trilogy, is coming out this year, as far as I know. So I'm not going to read the back of that because we don't want to spoil the trilogy for us. The Dead Hours of Night, stories by Lisa Tuttle. This is part of the Murder She Wrote. Is that what it's called? No, not Murder She Wrote. What's it called? It doesn't even say on here. What's it called? Oh, I can't even remember it. Monster! There we are. Monster She Wrote series. So this is a book of short stories by Lisa Tuttle. In a career spanning almost 50 years, Lisa Tuttle has proven herself a master of the weird tale. And now this new collection of 12 unsettling stories, some never previously collected, offers readers a chance to discover some of her finest work. In Replacements, a woman adopts a monstrous pet with unforeseen consequences. In Born Dead, a stillborn child mysteriously continues to grow just like a living one. My Pathology, whose ending Thomas Tessier has cited as one of the best in the history of horror, explores the sinister results of a couple's alchemical experiments. And a book lover in The Book That Finds You has her life changed in strange ways by the discovery of a rare horror book at a second-hand bookshop. In these weird and chilling tales, Tuttle is at her diabolical best. So I haven't read this author before, and short stories is one of my things. If you haven't watched my channel before, I read a short story at the beginning of every day, and I pretty much never miss. So I read pretty close to 365 short stories every year. So I'm always on the lookout for anthologies or storybook collections. So I've been picking up reading journals here and there, and I thought I would try a couple of the cheap Amazon reading journals to see what they were like. So this first one here was what I expected it would look like on the outsides. And you get to take a look at the insides of these. So I knew what I was getting. So we have This Journal Belongs To. It has an index, which I really like. So there are 105. What? Oh no, that's pages. So that's going to be 52 reviews you can get in here. So we've got a two pages for the each book review. And I really like what's in this one. We've got the book title, the author, the format, paperback, etc. Whether it's fiction or nonfiction and the genre, who recommended it or why did you pick it up, date started and finished, and then it gives you ratings in a whole bunch of different categories and then an overall rating. I just give overall ratings, I don't do that other stuff. The book in 3 words, that's what I've been doing in my current reading journal. And then a brief summary of the introduction, development, twist, and conclusion. So this is actually where you'll end up putting the spoilers and stuff of the book. I probably won't use that. And then we have values, themes, ideologies portrayed, courage, love, rich versus poor, fascism, etc. I'll probably occasionally use that. Favorite part, and new words learned. I like that because I like looking up words. When I'm reading on my Kindle, I do. I don't when I'm reading a physical copy. And then this is a bullet page for you to put your review notes or thoughts. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to write on dotted paper. I have to draw in my own lines, I guess. That's a little weird. So then you just keep on going, and that's the way the book is. I don't think there's anything extra at the end. Reading wish list. I won't use that because my wish list is I could fill up the whole book. So yeah. Then this one was not what I expected. I did not expect them to print a reading journal this size. In my opinion, reading journals are meant to be carried, and so you need to have some sort of size that's going to go well in your purse or just to carry around with you. So at the beginning we have the contents, which goes for 100 reviews, and then you can tick off what genre it is, and there's some room here for you to add your own genres. So that takes up the first few pages. And then each review is 1 page, and they're numbered. I like that. So we've got the title, author, publisher, publisher date, page count, which I really like. That hasn't come in any other ones that I have. Then we have fiction or nonfiction, and then the genre and the subject, as well as a place to write your review, somewhere to write a quote, date started and finished, and where you bought it or loaned it from, why you read it, what did it inspire you to do, and who will you recommend it to. And then we get, we can rate the book in plot, characters, ease of reading, up to 5 stars, but then you can only give it an overall 1, 2, or 3. So I don't like that. I'll probably draw a happy face at the beginning and the end, so it can be 5. So yeah, I probably won't fill out this section here, but I like this setup for sure. So yeah, this one, I'm going to use it because I like the setup on here for sure. So there. So I'm a big fan of Frankenstein, and I found this set of new annotated books, and one of the ones that they had is Frankenstein, so it's annotated. There's an introduction by Guillermo del Toro, an afterword by Anne K. Meller, and the book is edited and annotated by Leslie K. S. Klinger. I was going to say Klingon then for a minute. And let's see what it looks like naked. Very nice. Yeah, nice. So this is just an absolutely beautiful annotated edition of Frankenstein, and I've read it so many times. My next foray into it will be an annotated edition. So there's a couple of other books in this series which I intend to get. There's two Lovecraft ones. One about Arkham, and one that's not the Cthulhu stories. Then there's Dracula, and a new one is coming out this year of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I've read those all multiple times. And next we have another true crime book. I always like to look at a book's naked. That's a really pretty purple. For readers of Educated in the Glass Castle, a harrowing, redemptive, and profoundly inspiring memoir of childhood trauma and its long reach into adulthood. One Omaha winter day in November 1978, when Deborah Harding was just 14, she was abducted at knife point from a church parking lot. She was thrown into a van, assaulted, held for ransom, and then left to die as an ice storm descended over the city. Deborah survived. She identified her attacker to the police and then returned to her teenage life in a dysfunctional home where she was expected to simply move on. Denial became the family coping strategy offered by her fun-loving, conflicted father and her cruelly resentful mother. It wasn't until decades later, when beset by the symptoms of PTSD, that Deborah undertook a radical project. She met her childhood attacker face-to-face in prison and began to reconsider and reimagine his complex story. This was a quest for the truth that would threaten the lie at the heart of her family, and with it the sacred bond that once saved her. Dexterously shifting between the past and the present, Deborah Harding untangles the incident of her kidnapping and escape from unexpected angles, offering a vivid, intimate portrait of one family's disintegration in the 1970s Midwest. So that sounds really interesting, her looking at stuff from the point of view of the criminal. And here we have a Ragnar Johansson book. Johannesson. Ragnar Johansson, I guess, is it? I've always wanted to read her, is it? No, him. I've always wanted to read one of his books. And this is a standalone. The Girl Who Died. Teacher wanted at the edge of the world. Una is devastated by her father's sudden tragic suicide, and she cannot face another winter staring at the four walls of her shabby Reykjavik apartment. Celebrating Christmas and ringing in 1986 in the remote fishing hamlet of Skalar seems like a small price to pay for a chance to earn some teaching credentials and get her life back on track. But Skalar just isn't just one of Iceland's most isolated villages. It is home to only 10 people. Once she arrives, Una quickly realizes nothing in city life has prepared her for this. The villagers are unfriendly, the weather is bleak, the old house she is renting makes odd sounds, and she quickly becomes plagued by nightmares of a little girl in a white dress singing a lullaby. Una worries that she's losing her mind. And then just before Christmas, there's a death in the village. Una may have escaped the ghosts of her past, but something is haunting her present. Another true crime, Damnation Island. Poor, sick, mad, and criminal in 19th century New York. You can tell that I'm really into historical crime. Alright, so no illustrations. Enthralling, Oh no, don't read that. Conceived as the most modern, humane incarceration facility the world had ever seen, New York's Blackwell's Island, site of a lunatic asylum, 2 prisons, an almshouse, and a number of hospitals, quickly became, in the words of a visiting Charles Dickens, a lounging, listless madhouse. Digging through city records, newspaper articles, and archival reports, Stacey Horn tells a gripping narrative through the voices of the island's inhabitants. We also hear from the era's officials, reformers, and journalists, including the celebrated undercover reporter Nellie Bly. And we follow the extraordinary Reverend William Glennie French as he ministers to Blackwell's residents, battles the bureaucratic mazes of the Department of Correction and a corrupt city hall, testifies at salacious trials, and in his diary wonders about man's inhumanity to his fellow man. Damnation Island shows how far we've come in caring for the least fortunate among us and reminds us of how much work still remains. Well, this sounds like it's going to be absolutely fascinating. Jeff Vandermeer's latest book. I'm a big fan of his book, even though sometimes he does get a bit weird. A brilliant speculative thriller of dark conspiracy, endangered species, and the possible end of all things. The security consultant, Jane Smith, receives an envelope with a key to a storage unit that holds a taxidermied hummingbird and clues leading to a taxidermied salamander. Sylvina, the dead woman who left the note, was a reputed eco-terrorist and the daughter of an Argentine industrialist. By taking the hummingbird from the storage unit, Jane sets in motion a series of events that quickly spiral beyond her control. Soon, Jane and her family are in danger, with few allies to help her make sense of the true scope of the peril. Is the only way to safety to follow in Sylvana's footsteps? Is it too late to stop? As Jane desperately seeks answers about why Sylvana contacted her, time is running out for her and possibly for the world. So I've been wanting to read Simone St. James, and this is the first one I've picked up, Lost Among the Living. England, 1921. 3 years after her husband, Alex, disappeared, shot down over Germany, Joe Manders still mourns his loss. Working as a paid companion to Alex's wealthy, condescending aunt, Dottie Forsyth, Joe travels to the family's estate in the Sussex countryside. But there is much she never knew about her husband's origins, and the revelation of a mysterious death in the Forsyths' past is just the beginning. All is not well at Wych Elm House. Dottie's husband is distant, and their son was grievously injured in the war. Footsteps follow Jo down empty halls, and items in her bedroom are eerily rearranged. The locals say that the family is cursed and that a ghost in the woods has never rested. And when Jo discovers her husband's darkest secrets, she wonders if she ever really knew him. Isolated in a place of deception and grief, she must find the truth or lose herself forever. And then a familiar stranger arrives at Wych Elm House. Oh. Simone St. James was in, I don't know if she's Canadian. It says she worked in Canadian television. Now, I love Asian fiction, especially Japanese and Korean. Yoko Ogawa is, don't know which one she is. But anyways, this is her The Diving Pool, which is 3 novellas, and this sounds really good. Hilary Mantel says, Ogawa is original, elegant, very disturbing. I think from the name she's Japanese. From Akutagawa prize-winning author Yoko Ogawa comes a trio of novellas about love, motherhood, fertility, obsession, and how even the most innocent gestures contain a hairline crack of cruel intent. A lonely teenage girl falls in love with her foster brother as she watches him leap from a high diving board into a pool, a peculiar infatuation that sends unexpected ripples through her life. A young woman records the daily moods of her pregnant sister in a diary, taking meticulous note of a pregnancy that may or not be a hallucination, but whose hallucination is it, hers or her sister's? A woman nostalgically visits her old college dormitory on the outskirts of Tokyo, a boarding house run by a mysterious triple amputee with one leg. Hauntingly spare, beautiful and twisted, The Diving Pool is a disquieting, at times darkly humorous collection of novellas about normal people who suddenly discover their own dark possibilities. Woohoo! That sounds good. Well, no big words in here. That's going to be a quick read. And another nonfiction, we have American Sherlock, Murder, Forensics, and the Birth of American CSI by Kate Winkler Dawson. This sounds really good. Berkeley, California, 1933. In a lab filled with curiosities, beakers, microscopes, Bunsen burners, and hundreds upon hundreds of books, sat an investigator who would go on to crack at least 2,000 cases in his 40-year career. Known as the American Sherlock Holmes, Edward Oscar Heinrich was one of America's first forensic scientists with an uncanny knack for finding clues, establishing evidence, and deducing answers with a skill that seemed almost supernatural. With his brilliance and commanding presence in both the courtroom and at crime scenes, Heinrich spearheaded the invention of a myriad of new forensic tools that police still use today, including blood-stain pattern analysis, ballistics, lie detector tests, and the use of fingerprints as courtroom evidence. His work, though not without its serious, some would say fatal flaws, changed the course of American criminal investigation. Based on years of research and thousands of never-before-published primary source materials, American Sherlock captures the life of the man who pioneered the silent science our legal system now relies upon, as well as the limits of those techniques and the very human experts who wield them. We have a photograph section in the middle. Okay, so next I found this series of books called The Horror Writers Association Presents The Haunted Library of Horror Classics, and it looks really good. They've got some good old horror, classic horror, I guess we're calling it, that I haven't read. So I decided to get the first book in the series, which is The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I've never read this, and it's one of the few classic, like main horror classics that I haven't read. I've read the majority of the ones that are like really high in the main, that most people know. So this one I've never read, probably because I used to have a thing against French literature. I just didn't like it, but I'm going to give this a try. It looks easy to read. At least the font is nice and large, and it's not exactly as big a book as I thought it was. I thought it was really large, but well, it's not even 300 pages. Introduction by Nancy Holder. So I'm not going to read the back of that. I think everybody knows what So this is based on the original 1911 English translation by Alexander Teixeira de Matos. What? Okay, this isn't adapted, is it? No, of course it isn't. Yeah, okay, it's the 1909 edition. And then this one was on sale for $4, so I thought I might as well pick it up. And I've never heard of this, and this is a really old one. It's called Vafek, and it's by William Beckford. And it says, when you have all you could... Well, first of all, let me tell you when it was written, because it's written in like 17-something. So Leslie S. Klinger is an editor of this series, too. That's how I found it. Okay, so it's from 1786. When you have all you could ever want, what's left to wish for? Vathek, the majestic and fierce ninth caliph of the Abbasids, has the world at his feet with pleasure palaces constructed solely to satisfy his every possible appetite. Both his anger and his intellect are legendary. Possessed of an intense thirst for knowledge, he often invites scholars to converse with him, but imprisons those who cannot be persuaded via logic or bribes to his point of view. Nothing is beyond his grasp until a hideous stranger sells him glowing swords with letters on them that cannot be translated, even by experts, because the letters are ever changing, as if by magic. Obsessed with attaining the stranger's knowledge, Vathek undertakes a massive search of his kingdom. His journey becomes increasingly horrific as he ventures into the underworld, meeting demons and witches. Will love of Muhammad or country or a young woman he encounters be enough to turn him from his foolish quest, or will the lust for power prove too strong to resist? This has really big words, and it's just over 100 pages. So yeah, interested in that. This is nonfiction, and I picked this up for the March book that the True Crime Book Club is reading. So it's Lady Killers, Deadly Women Throughout History by Tori Telfer. Now, I thought I had read this, but there's no review for it on Goodreads, so I mustn't have read it. So in 1998, an FBI profiler infamously declared in a homicide conference there are no female serial killers, but Lady Killers offers 14 creepy examples to the contrary. I think we know by now that there are female serial killers. Though largely forgotten by history, female serial killers such as Arabette Bathory, Nanny Doss, Mary Ann Cotton, and Daria Nikolaevna Saltykova rival their male counterparts in cunning, cruelty, and appetite for destruction. With a feminist lens and a witty, morbidly humorous tone, Lady Killers dismisses easy explanations. She was hormonal, she did it for love, a man made her do it, and tired tropes. She was a femme fatale, a black widow, a witch, delving into the complex reality of female aggression and predation. So it's mini biographies of a bunch of people. Some of them I've heard of, some of them I haven't, like that Russian named lady. Got a couple of books by Kelan Patrick Burke, though this is, that was last month that I got them. So I got Kin. I had to send the book back because my first copy that I got, it was blank down the center of the pages, so you couldn't read it. So this is Kin by Kelan Patrick Burke, and this sounds awesome. On a scorching hot summer day in Elkwood, Alabama, Claire Lambert staggers naked, wounded, and half-blind away from the scene of an atrocity. She is the sole survivor of a nightmare that claimed her friends, and even as she prays for rescue, the killers, a family of cannibalistic lunatics, are closing in. A soldier suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder returns from Iraq to the news that his brother is among the murdered in Elkwood. In snowbound Detroit, a waitress trapped in an abusive relationship gets an unexpected visit that will lead to bloodshed and send her back on the road to a past she has spent years trying to outrun. And Claire, the only survivor of the Elkwood massacre, haunted by her dead friends, dreams of vengeance, a dream which will be realized as grief and rage turn good people into cold-blooded murderers and force alliances among strangers. It's time to return to Elkwood. In the spirit of such iconic horror classics as the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Deliverance, Kin begins at the end and studies the possible aftermath for the survivors of such traumas upon their return to the real world, the guilt, the grief, the thirst for revenge, and sets them on an unthinkable journey back into the heart of darkness. Sounds good. And then a book that I've been wanting to read for a very long time, and the sequel is coming out this year, so it's time I get my butt in gear and read this. So I love these types of book. Here it compares it to The Stand of the Passage in Station 11. I've read those except for Station 11, which is another one I want to read. So this is Wanderers by Chuck Wendig. And Shayna wakes up one morning to discover her little sister in the grip of a strange illness. She appears to be sleepwalking, and she is heading with an inexorable determination to a destiny that only she knows. Soon, Shauna and her sister are joined by a flock of sleepwalkers from across America on the same mysterious journey. And like Shauna, there are other shepherds who follow the flock to protect their friends and family. As the sleepwalking epidemic awakens terror and violence, and as civilization collapses, the secret behind this phenomenon will either tear society apart or bring the survivors together to remake a shattered world. So this is a chunkster. 780 pages, so whoo. That'll take a while to read. Picked up a few books by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Buchanan, which I haven't read. I've read one book by them, which is probably The Wife Between Us. I don't know, it's the one I didn't get anyways. So An Anonymous Girl. Seeking women ages 18 to 32 to participate in a study on ethics and morality, generous compensation, anonymity guaranteed. When Jessica Ferris signs up for a psychology study conducted by the mysterious Dr. Shields, she thinks all she'll have to do is answer a few questions, collect her money, and leave. Question number 1. Could you tell a lie without feeling guilt? But as the questions grow more and more intense and invasive and the sessions become outings where Jess is told what to wear and how to act, she begins to feel as though Dr. Shields may know what she's thinking and what she's hiding. Question number 2. Have you ever deeply hurt someone you care about? As Jess's paranoia grows, it becomes clear that she can no longer trust what in her life is real and what is one of Dr. Shields' manipulative experiments. Caught in a web of deceit and jealousy, Jess quickly learns that some obsessions can be deadly. Question number 3. Should a punishment always fit the crime? Well, that sounds really good. I like books that are like about experiments. So, the other one I got was You Are Not Alone by Greer Hendricks. You probably know someone like Shay Miller. She wants to find love, but it eludes her. She wants to be fulfilled, but her job is a dead end. She wants to belong, but her life is becoming increasingly isolated. You probably don't know anyone like the Moore sisters. They have an unbreakable circle of friends. They live a life of glamour and perfection. They always get what they desire. Shay thinks she wants their life, but what they really want is hers. Ooh, sounds good. Oh, just let me grab the other one. Okay, it's The Wife Between Us. The one I've read by her is The Anonymous Girl. So The Wife Between Us. When you read this book, you will make many assumptions. You will assume you are reading about a jealous ex-wife. You will assume she is obsessed with her replacement, a beautiful younger woman who is about to marry the man they both love. You will assume you know the anatomy of this tangled love triangle. Assume nothing. I like domestic thrillers. Now here's the book that I'm going to be that I'll be reading shortly. This is this month's true crime book of the month. This is Don't Call It a Cult. The shocking story of Keith Raniere and the women of NXIVM. I have no idea what that means. By Sarah Berman, and I've never heard of this, I don't believe. They draw you in with the promise of self-empowerment, self-discovery, women helping women. Little did you know, you just joined a cult. Sex trafficking, self-help coaching, forced labor, mentorship, multi-level marketing, gaslighting. Investigative journalist Sarah Berman explores the shocking practices of XIVM, an organization run by Keith Raniere and his high-profile enablers, Seagram heir Claire Bronfman, Smallville actor Allison Mack, Battlestar Galactica actor Nikki Klein. Oh, I have heard of this. I remember Allison Mack going to trial or something. In her deeply researched account, Berman unravels how young women seeking creative coaching and networking opportunities found themselves blackmailed, literally branded, near-starved, and enslaved. With the help of the Bronman fortune, Raniere built a wall of silence around these abuses, leveraging the legal system to go after enemies and whistleblowers. Don't Call It a Cult shows that these abuses looked very different from the inside, where young women initially received mentorship and protection. Don't Call It a Cult is a riveting account of NXIVM's rise to power, its ability to evade prosecution for decades, and the investigation that finally revealed its dark secrets to the world. It explores why so many were drawn to its message of empowerment, yet could not recognize its manipulative, harmful leader for what he was, a criminal. And Sarah Berman is a Canadian as well. So again, we have the glossy photo section in the middle. And then next we have P.D. Kasich, Second Lives. Four dead patients awake, but whose souls now inhabit their bodies? What's it called? Second Lives. A frightened little boy killed in 1956 cries out for his mother and the body of an elderly Alzheimer's patient. The soul of a spinster killed in a suffragette rally wakes in the body of a new mother. An Orthodox Jew, murdered in 1922, opens the eyes of a man who just committed suicide, and a teenage girl wakes to discover she's now in the body of a middle-aged woman. When these four patients regain consciousness after being declared dead, their loved ones are ecstatic, and words like miracle begin to float around the hospital. But the jubilation is short-lived when the patients don't recognize their families or answer to their names. Each one claims to be someone else, someone who lived and died in the past. When it's suggested that all four are suffering from fugue states, a temporary loss of identity caused by their traumas, one of the doctors must speak up. He recognizes a name and verifies he not only knew the girl, but was there when she died in 1992. The patients are completely alone and terrified. Their new families are grieving for the loved one who on the surface appears to be right in front of them, almost find immense bravery within themselves to transition into their new lives. Nonfiction again, The Cold Vanish, Seeking the Missing in North America's Wildlands. These are the stories that defy conventional logic. The proverbial vanished without a trace incidents, which happen more frequently and a lot closer to your backyard than almost anyone thinks. They're the hardest on loved ones, embarrassments for park superintendents, rangers, and law enforcement, and the cases that baffle volunteers, all combing the mountains, woods, and badlands. On April 4th, 2017, a young cyclist named Jacob Gray left his bike on the side of the road, disappearing into Olympic National Park. In The Cold Vanish, John Billman follows Jacob's father, Randy Gray, in his life-halting search for his son, exploring exactly what happens when someone goes missing. Braided around this narrative are accounts of those who fill the vacuum created by a vanished human being. A bloodhound handler, backcountry search and rescue experts, the world's foremost Bigfoot researcher, and countless others who dedicate their time to assist family members searching for loved ones or a sense of closure. While it delves into the histories of those lost, The Cold Vanish at its core is about now and tomorrow, when another person will be lost to the wilderness. These are the stories that should give you pause every time you venture outdoors, lest you be next. This doesn't have any illustration. Josh Mallerman is somebody else I haven't read. So I got Bird Box. I don't know if that's in these books or if I got that a previous month, but I also got Inspection. Jay is a student at a school deep in a forest far away from the rest of the world. Jay is one of only 26 students, all of whom think of the school's enigmatic founder as their father. Jay's peers are the only family he has ever had. The students are being trained to be prodigies of art, science, and athletics, and their life at the school is all they know, and all they are allowed to know. But Jay suspects that there is something out there, beyond the pines, and that the founder does not want him to see, and he's beginning to ask questions. What is the real purpose of this place? Why can the students never leave? And what secrets is their father hiding from them? Meanwhile, on the other side of the forest, in a school very much like Jay's, a girl named Kay is asking the same questions. Jay has never seen a girl, and Kay has never seen a boy. As Kay and Jay work to investigate the secrets of their two strange schools, they come to discover something even more mysterious, each other. So this sounds like a young adult book just from the plot, but it's not. Picked up the first book in this series that I've been wanting to read, and I can't remember if this is young adult or it's not. I think it is. I think it is young adult. But anyways, it's The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodore Goss. Well, it's a Nebula finalist, so maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Yeah, no, it's not. It's adult, because it won some awards here. Mary Jekyll, alone and penniless following her parents' death, quickly finds herself drawn into the secrets of her father's mysterious past. A clue leads her to believe that Edward Hyde, her father's former friend and a murderer, may be nearby, and there is still a reward for information resulting in his capture. A reward that would solve all her immediate financial woes. But her hunt brings her not to Edward Hyde, but to Diana, his daughter, a near feral child left to be raised by nuns. With the assistance of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, Mary continues her search for the elusive Hyde, and soon gathers around her more women, all of whom have been created through terrifying experimentation: Beatrice Rappaccini, Catherine Moreau, and Justine Frankenstein. When their investigations lead them to the discovery of a secret society of immoral and power-crazed scientists, the horrors of their past soon arrive on the doorstep as well, and now it's up to the 5 women to stop the malicious machinations of the Société des Alchimistes. Quite simply, it is time for the monsters to triumph over the monstrous. Now, I know all the names in here except for Rappaccini. The daughter's name is Beatrice, but Rappaccini has to be. I can't even imagine what it'd be from. So this is, like I said, the first in a series, and isn't the cover gorgeous? I love that. Picked up an Anne Rule book. I really never did read Anne Rule. I think I've read one of her books, and one of her books where she puts like 5 cases in one. So this is A Bitter Harvest. In this harrowing New York Times bestseller, Anne Rule is at her masterful best as she winnows horrific truths from the ashes of what seemed like paradise in Prairie Village, Kansas. Rule probes the case of Deborah Green, a doctor and a loving mother who seemed to epitomize the dreams of the American heartland. A small-town girl with a genius IQ, she achieved an enviable life, her own medical practice, a handsome physician husband, 3 perfect children, and an opulent home in an exclusive Kansas City suburb. But when a raging fire destroyed that home and took 2 lives, the trail of clues led investigators to a stunning conclusion. Piece by piece, Anne Rule digs beneath this placid Midwestern facade to unveil a disturbing portrait of strangely troubled marriages, infidelity, desperation, suicide, and escalating acts of revenge that forever changed dozens of lives. So it's a must-read story of the 90s. I'm not thinking of what this is. Maybe once I get reading I might recognize the story, but don't know yet. Then I have a couple of other of Kelan Patrick Burke's books. These are novellas. So this is Blanky. In the wake of his infant daughter's tragic death, Steve O'Branigan is struggling to keep himself together. Estranged from his wife, he refuses to be inside the house where the unthinkable happened, and unable to work. He seeks solace in an endless parade of old sitcoms and a bottle of bourbon. Until one night he hears a sound from his daughter's old room, a room now stripped bare of anything that identified it as hers, except for her security blanket, affectionately known as Blanky. Blanky, old and frayed with its antiquated patchwork of badly sewn rabbits with black button eyes, who appear to be staring at the viewer. Blanky purchased from a strange old man at an antique stall selling baby clothes at a discount. The presence of Blanky in his dead daughter's room heralds nothing short of an unspeakable nightmare that threatens to take away what little light remains in Steve's shattered world. Because his daughter loved Blanky so much, he buried her with it. Woohoo. So that sounds like it's kind of close to a creepy kid story, and I love creepy kid stories. Now we have Sour Candy by Kelan Patrick Burke, another novella. At first glance, Phil Pendleton and his son Adam are just an ordinary father and son, no different from any other. They take walks in the park, visit county fairs, museums, and zoos, and eat together overlooking the lake. Some might say the father is a little too accommodating given the lack of discipline when the child loses his temper in public. Some might say he spoils his son by allowing him to set his own bedtimes and eat candy whenever he wants. Some might say that such leniency is starting to take its toll on the father, given how his health has declined. What no one knows is that Phil is a prisoner, and that up until a few weeks ago, and a chance encounter at a grocery store, he had never seen the child before in his life. That sounds really cool. Quick read. Nonfiction by Susanna Kelan, The Great Pretender. In 1973, a charismatic doctor convinced 8 healthy people to commit themselves to mental hospitals. They had to prove their sanity to be set free. Their undercover mission would change our understanding of madness forever. Now this sounds creepy. For centuries, doctors have struggled to define mental illness. How do you diagnose it? How do you treat it? How do you even know what it is? In search of an answer, in the 1970s, a Stanford psychologist named David Rosenhan and 7 other people, all these experiments happened in the 70s. That's so insane, some of these. Same, normal, well-adjusted members of society went undercover into asylums around America to test the legitimacy of psychiatry's labels. Forced to remain inside until they'd proven themselves sane, all 8 emerged with alarming diagnoses and even more troubling stories of their treatment. Rosenhan's watershed study broke open the field of psychiatry, hastening the closing of institutions and changing mental health diagnoses forever. But as Callahan's explosive new research shows, very little in this saga is exactly as it seems. What really happened behind those closed asylum doors, and what does it mean for our understanding of mental illness today? As an extraordinary new investigative work from one of America's most encouraging young journalists, The Great Pretender not only exposes a startling mystery that lay hidden in plain sight for nearly 50 years, but this masterpiece of narrative history offers a searing, propulsive, and urgent look at the culture in which a single experiment could change the course of modern medicine. That sounds really good. A few more to go. Jonathan Jan's Castle of Sorrows. A year ago, composer Ben Shadeland traveled to the Sorrows, a reportedly haunted island off the California coast, to find inspiration for a horror movie music score. Instead, he found madness, murder, and an ancient evil. His family barely survived the nightmare. Now Ben's infant daughter has been kidnapped, and Ben is convinced that the malevolent creature that lives in the catacombs beneath Castle Blackwood is responsible. Ben joins 3 federal agents, a medium, and others in an attempt to save his daughter. But what awaits them is far worse than they ever imagined. Ben thought he knew what true horror was, but the beast of Castle Blackwood wants revenge, and it won't be sated until it has feasted on the blood of Ben Shadeland and everyone dear to him. That sounds good. They all sound good. This is by Hunter Shea, Ghost Mine. Deep in a pitch-black mine in Wyoming, hell is waiting. Nat Blackburn, New York City cop, is given an offer he can't refuse by President Theodore Roosevelt. The abandoned mining town of Hecla has long been the subject of many tales of gold. But those that seek their fortune never return. Roosevelt's own troops are among the missing, and the president wants to know their fate and find the gold. Nat travels to the barren land along with his friends Tita and Selma. The town quickly reveals that there is more to its dusty streets. Nat and his friends try to discover the source of Hecla's strange power, and in doing so they find a torturous battle between underworld creatures and unravel a mystery that could spell the end of the world. Ooh. Now these next 2 books here I'm not going to keep. I just want to show them in case you ever are interested. So these are published by 451, which is a division of Flame Tree Press. Yeah, it's Flame Tree 451. So these are like old stories, and it says Essential Gothic SF and Dark Fantasy. The problem with these is that the printing is minuscule. It's just that it's not going to be easy on the eyes. And these are books that are in the public domain. So I mean, if you're gonna read, like this one right here is from 1922, The Undying Monster by Jessie Douglas Carouche. Now, I wouldn't mind reading this, but if you're going to read a book that's in the public domain, you need a nice presentation. Otherwise, just read it on your Kindle. So, I'm not going to keep these. There's that one, and The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins. I definitely would read this on my Kindle rather than reading that puny writing. So, yeah, those 2 were duds. Those were from Book Outlet. So, just so you know. Oh wait, there's one more of those. I'll just show that now. William Hope Hodgson, The House on Borderland. I think actually this book is part of the horror classic series that I showed you at the beginning. So yeah, not keeping those 3. So we have Greyfriars Reformatory by Fraser Lee. Welcome to Greyfriars Reformatory for Girls, an imposing experimental facility in the middle of nowhere, the perfect place to dump antisocial teenagers for treatment. Principal Quick runs the facility with an iron fist, so the place already seems like a nightmare to the inmates, but it gets much worse when the terrifying apparition of the mysterious Grey Girl begins haunting the shadowy corridors. First one inmate is found dead, then another. Were the deaths really a gruesome suicide and a bizarre accident, like Principal Quick says? Or were the girls frightened to death? Could the Grey Girl be responsible? When Emily, one of the new arrivals, makes a shocking discovery down in the basement, all their lives are at stake. One by one, the Grey Girl is coming for them. Bentley Little the Store. There's just this and one more book left. Juniper, Arizona is an off-the-map desert town the retail giant called The Store has chosen for its new location. It has everything you could possibly want under one roof at unbelievable prices. But this place demands something of its customers that goes beyond brand loyalty. At The Store, one-stop shopping has become last-stop shopping. Bill Davis is the only one in town who senses the evil lurking within the store. But he can't stop his two teenage daughters from taking jobs there and falling under the frightening influence of its sadistic manager. When Bill finally takes a stand, he'll get much more than he bargained for at a terrifying cost. And finally, I got Arabette by Clive Barker. I have the sequel to this, but I've been waiting to get the first book, so we can read this since it's book 1 in a series. I believe it's a trilogy. A journey beyond imagination is about to unfold. It begins in the most boring place in the world, Chickentown, USA. There lives Candy Quackenbush, her heart bursting for some clue as to what her future might hold. When the answer comes, it's not one she expects. Welcome to, I called this Arabette. It's Abarat. Abarat. Welcome to the Abarat, a vast archipelago where every island is a different hour of the day. Candy has a place in this extraordinary land. She is here to help save the Abarat from the dark forces that are stirring at its heart. Forces older than time itself and more evil than anything Candy has ever encountered. She's a strange heroine, she knows, but this is a strange world, and in the Abarat, all things are possible. So a little bit of a light fantasy. So yeah, see what Clive Barker is like in his writing. And that's it, folks. So thank you for staying with me for all this time. If you made it this far in the video, leave the word scary down below. And because pretty much all the books that I got here are scary stories. So thank you for allowing me to share these wonderful books with you, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day. So in the meantime, until next time, bye!